So Nick, you had, sort of come upon the idea of automated, guest house or boutique B&B, whatever you want to call it. So we were looking at a model where it's how could we run a guest house model from, 4 or 5 hours away from where we lived, automate it, take out all the bits and pieces that we didn't like about guest houses and just make it a fresh and new model.
Hello and welcome to This Property Life, the podcast brought to you by Property Wealth System. At This Property Life, we try and give you insights into the real world of property investors, the good, the bad and the ugly. Hence why I'm with Rick today. We bring you stories and interviews with people in property that help and inspire our listeners to get started in property or to keep going amongst all the noise that's out there. So today I'm with my good friend and colleague, Rick Blaney. Welcome, Rick.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for that lovely welcome. It's really nice for you to introduce me as the good. So you've got your choice of bad or ugly.
I think we all know which one I was going with there. Let's move swiftly on. It's good to have you on the podcast at last, Rick. You are the fourth and final member of our podcasting team. So good to have you finally on board with us. And we are all waiting with bated breath to hear your chat.
No pressure then.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, because our listeners know me, they know Sarah, they know Caroline. So give us the 30-second Rick Blaney masterclass.
All right. Well, I'm Sarah's husband, long-suffering husband. We've been married for quite a few years, met at school. We currently live in Hampshire in the New Forest. Been investing as an amateur for quite a number of years and more professionally for the last 10 years. So background is living down in Hampshire, traveling up to the northwest, investing in sort of Liverpool, the Wirral, Southport, and some more stuff in Hampshire. So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent, thanks, Rick. So I think what we thought we'd talk about today, while I've got Rick here, is talk about collaboration. Right? So I think there's a lot of, particularly I would say, newer investors out there that are quite precious about maybe, not telling people what they're doing, maybe not wanting to tell people where they're investing for fear that other investors are going to flood in and create more competition. I think we just wanted to just talk about our experience of working together over the last few years and why that's led to much higher gains, I would say, than trying to do it alone and come at it from the angle of collaboration is better. Use your network, leverage your network essentially, and why you need to collaborate to accelerate.
Absolutely. I think, as you say, there's definitely a misconception and from people that we meet, potentially new investors. I think when we're, at our Property Wealth System education events and you've got newer investors there, they're a little bit maybe burnt by previous experiences where, maybe they've not met the right property people. Maybe they've been, felt they've shared some intel with somebody and somebody's used that in perhaps not the right way. What we see is quite the different, because we're all about collaboration, economies of scale, and utilizing, other people's experience. So leveraging off what other people have done. So I think a really good example was, when you and I both started, investing in Liverpool, perhaps some 10 years ago now, 9-10 years ago, when we were looking at a specific model there, which was around HMOs. At the time, there was a lot of stuff happening in sort of L6, L7, similar type properties, taking rundown 2 and 3 bed terrace houses and converting them into 6-bedroom HMOs, specifically for the student population and some for, more professional. And at the time, we just used the fact that we were working together to, many hands make light work and leveraging off our experience. And actually finding out that the more we looked together and collaborated, the more we'd find. And it was quite the opposite to, keeping it sort of secret squirrel.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive. You think, well, if there's what we were doing is pretty niche. I think literally the area we were investing in was about, 20 streets. Probably wasn't more than that. So you think about, we're both looking for the same kind of property in only 20 streets to do exactly the same thing. on the surface, that might seem that why would we do that? That's nuts. We're reducing our potential to find deals if there's more than one of us doing it. I know we weren't the only ones doing that model anyway. But once we kind of just got into it, we realized that the sum of our parts was greater than trying to do it individually, because we could we could work with the same builders, for example. So we both bring different things to the party. So I'd been doing the same model in Birmingham previously, and I was kind of mainly started off doing that on my own. There was a couple of people I collaborated with, and a good collaboration there was actually with one of the letting agents who ended up specializing in this kind of model of student houses, and it was also buying. So again, I might have thought, oh, you might be competition, but actually together, it was really powerful, because I knew that if he would find deals for me that he couldn't do, I would do them and give them back to him to let out. So it was in everyone's interests to make these deals happen. So I kind of grew that network in Birmingham. Then, the market changed there. It was much harder to make that model work in Birmingham for me, what I wanted to achieve. So that's why I kind of moved to Liverpool. Rick, you were already in Liverpool, I think, at that time, doing some buy-to-let stuff there. So we kind of started off at the same kind of time looking at Liverpool. And, it made sense to, bring our areas of knowledge together. So I kind of brought the model. I kind of knew what the model was going to be and how we're going to do it and how the numbers worked. And Rick, what did you bring to the table? I'm sure you brought something.
Well, always my amazing company. I mean, genuinely, Nick and I go back many years, having met our first corporate job when we were, in our early 20s. So there was actually a social element to it. At the time, we lived in Hertfordshire, and when we were looking to see where we could basically, move our area to, it was, well, if I travel 3.5 hours up the motorway and meet Nick, we could, work, inverted commas, which, there was quite a lot of work, but there was also a lot of strategy meeting, generally in the evening. And
mainly pub-based.
Yeah, pub-based activities. So it did give us actually, that opportunity to catch up. And so that was definitely a secondary gain. But I think what we bought was, I'm probably a bit more outgoing than Nick. You're a bit more analytical, a bit more of an owl. I'm a bit more of a sociable person. So, Nick would, crunch numbers and have more of the detail, and I would just be out talking to people. And I think going back to what you said there earlier, Nick, as well, actually what we realized is not only what we were doing was quite niche. You found that the people that you work with were quite niche. It was the same letting agents. There was a handful that were servicing a small number of people who were specializing in HMO. There was, maybe a dozen or so builders who really understood how to, convert these types of properties and do it well. The architects, the planning officers that you'd meet, even down to the cleaners and the letting agents and the sales agents. If you found a really good sales agent and that understood what you really wanted, and you were just effectively building this niche team of people that knew what you wanted, we understood what they wanted, and we were just building this kind of economy of collaboration, because that's effectively what people want in property. They want to be effective, they want to be profitable, they want to move at speed. So actually, if you think about it, everybody's looking to make gains in a similar way. And I think the main thing is about doing business. You don't have to like everybody that you do business with and within your team, but there has to be a level of respect. So if ever we met somebody, I don't know, just felt a bit off, or we didn't get a good vibe about, there were other people that you could move with, and having that network was the best thing, between us. But then, we looked to grow that, and we brought other people in. There was now, 3, 4, 5 of us all doing the similar thing, but all talking. So you'd share your common experiences of good and bad. If you found a good person that could help, within your team, you would share that experience.
Yeah, exactly. So, I remember you kind of brought the builder on board who was going to do, a lot of stuff for us. And, connecting with a lot of other people. You're always out there talking and communicating and networking with people. It worked really, really well. And because ultimately, one of these deals would be I don't know, probably 5-6 month process to get a property bought, renovated. It's a 13-week build, get it rented and unoccupied. So it's not like you could do every single deal that came up. So it made total sense to us to all work together. And initially it was me and Rick, and then we brought some of our other team. Jordan got involved, some of the guys that some of our listeners might know. And yeah, it made total sense, because if one of us wasn't able to go to Liverpool, there'd always be often be somebody there. So, we'd always try and coordinate to go, because, it's got to be fun as well. So quite happily arrange, a trip when we could both make it, so we could socialize, go have a night out. That was always, a part of it, I think. And don't think there's anything wrong with that. Don't tell Caroline. So yeah, it was fun, and that was motivational for me, definitely, because I do tend to be a little bit more of an introverted, introspective type of personality. So going, well, I'm perfectly fine to go to Liverpool and go and do what I need to do on my own. Definitely a lot more fun if your mate's there, and you're all working hard, but getting things done and having a bit of fun while you do it. So yeah, I felt that it really accelerated us to have that collaboration, because we brought new people into the team. As I said, if I couldn't make it to Liverpool, you'd be there, and I'd say, Rick, can you just drop by on the property at Gilroy Road and just check everything's going on with the build? And likewise, I did the same thing for you. There was also a little bit of friendly competition at times. So there was a couple of deals that you got, which I didn't even get a sniff of. Tell us about those ones.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to win in life, don't you? Whilst it was, I think, we set out the rules of engagement relatively quickly. It's like, look, if I'm in a period where we're actually outsourcing for property and looking for new properties to get into, it's like, best foot forward. Whoever, booked the viewing first would get in there. There were times where actually we were both looking. We say, look, actually, why don't we spend, the day going out to look at these 10 properties, and we'll just work it all out. But there were a couple that, came direct to vendor, which I'm not going to share with you. I'm not going to ring you up and say, look, good news, I've got, somebody's, tapped at me on the shoulder in the street and said, I can see what you're doing across the road there in that property. We're thinking about selling, so I was like, okay, well, I'll keep that one to myself. I remember a moment where I think actually one just popped into my inbox on a Friday afternoon. I had the builder in there, pretty much the same day, and we'd offered on Monday. And it was probably the best deal we did. It was came through probate. The guys that were selling, it was like a brother and sister. They just wanted shot of the property really, really quickly. So I didn't tell you about that one until it was under offer.
And there would be, there was absolutely no, expectation from my end that you would do that. It's all kind of, all part of the game, and it's all part of the fun. Is that if you get a great deal, good on you. What else getting it? I just bought a house that I thought was a pretty decent deal for 72.5, I think, around the corner, and you picked this one up for how much?
55.
Yeah, there you go.
Same house, less than probably 500 meters apart. Look, they both worked at those numbers. Obviously, the one at 55 worked better than the one at 75.
All right.
Because it was interesting that the great thing about the model that we were looking at is because we were taking these 2 and 3 bedroom terraces, it really didn't matter what was in them. It's got lovely, cornicing, it's got lovely plasterwork in there. We were taking these properties, gutting the insides, all the internal walls, dropping the ceilings. So when you go to site, you would be able to pretty much see right through to the apex of the roof, because there was nothing else in there, and then we'd rebuild them. So it almost became that level of detail that perhaps you have when you're looking at your first buy to let. The only thing we would look at, does it have gas connection, is there double glazing? Pretty much anything else was coming out anyway. And then it was interesting working with the agents. I think once they got to know that, they knew the types of properties that would work for us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, the power of specialization is once, you are there, and particularly if you are working kind of as a loose team or a collaboration, they would begin to associate us together. Even though we didn't invest together, and we were really clear about that. As you say, we set the ground rules out early. We weren't going to invest together. We were going to do the same thing in the same place and help each other, not be co-investors.
Exactly.
So, but the agents would get used to, it's either Nick or it might be Rick, might turn up, but we're doing the same thing. So I think they understood that we knew what we were doing. We'd built that market and we got offered stuff before it went out anywhere else. And even though we were operating in such a small area, we both found enough deals to build the model the way we wanted to do it and to do enough. In fact, it got to a point where, I think I had about 4 deals on the table and it was like, well, I can maybe do 3 of them. Do you want one? Kind of thing. And I don't know at the time whether you had something else and you couldn't, but that's kind of where it got to was, we were so specialist that we would get lots offered to us. And once we'd got what we wanted, we'd maybe share it out.
And there's always a way of doing, if you're in a position where you've reached, I guess, saturation point with the amount of projects you do, as you did, you source that property on to someone else for a fee. Happy days. There's always, ways and means of making money from it. So I think, the other thing to understand is that, within property, you will expand in terms of what you're doing. If you're cutting your teeth on your first buy to let, you'll get bored of that relatively quickly. If your strategy is to go into higher cash flowing properties, you can't stick at, buy to let. Yes, you might start looking at, small blocks of flats. You might then start looking at SA. So all of a sudden, you're out of that buy to let market. So those kind of, sort of basic buy to let model, leaving space for a new investor to come in. So I guess it's like looking at the cycle of investing as well. So I think early on, people are very little bit suspicious that, maybe they've been to the wrong type of networking meetings where it feels a little bit grimy and a bit grabby, and people are just like, just there to find, to try and get something out of you. And I think selling is an interesting thing. Some people don't like the word selling. You're being sold to every day. Someone's selling you a product, a service, an item, whatever it might be. And property's no different. There's lots of people involved in property. You're selling yourself. There's an agent that's selling a house. There's a vendor that's selling their home or an investment or whatever it needs to be. So, you do have to deal with people. So I think if you are a little bit, I guess, unsure about sharing what you're doing, the reality is you're not going to find this nugget of the country where nobody else is investing. You're not going to go to Burnley all of a sudden and find out that nobody's investing in Burnley and you're the only person that's doing it. You're going to bump into other investors. So I think both of us would, just really encourage you to start talking to people in the network and start, having maybe social catch-ups and finding out what's going on in the market.
Yeah, I mean, I've got loads of really great information from other investors out there. One of the key things when I was kind of working on putting the investment model together for Liverpool stuff was I wanted to know, what lenders were lending at commercial values for that kind of property at the time. And I couldn't really get an answer because we were quite early into that. So, I went out there and I talked to other investors who were doing it, and through my agent, got connection with another guy that'd been doing it a bit before us. And he was very open about it. He was like, yeah, I've used Shawbrook, I've used Aldermore, and gave you some names of some lenders that I could then pass on to my broker to say, right, these are lenders that lend commercial values. And we were almost kind of creating that market at that time.
And also, I think an interesting one on that was, the valuation survey as well, knowing, again, from the local market, who's going to give you, what we felt was a reasonable valuation, and perhaps who didn't understand the market, who to perhaps steer clear of on the panel. So again, it's just that, as prices are creeping up, if you've done a deal 9 months ago and refinance and it was revalued at 180, it's good to know that someone else has just had one done at 190, at 200, at 210, and that's the way the market was going at the time, because that allows you to perhaps be a little bit more flexible about the offers that you're putting in. It's a slightly different market to your buy to let, where you can see it on Rightmove. A lot of these HMO properties are, you have to wait for the market to almost be created and then see a history of trades.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and it's the more people that are doing it, it was in our interests for other investors to be doing what we were doing. I think that's the key. We weren't trying to keep it a secret, because the more people that were doing it, we had enough, to do. It's not like we could do every deal that came up, even though we're operating in quite a niche, small area. And the more people that did it, the more the market would be created. So again, kind of a little bit counterintuitive. Your initial reaction when you get into this is, oh, I won't tell anyone, I'll keep it all to myself. But actually, that is really going to hold you back. And it's much more about, look, tell people what you're doing, go and make connections, and everyone can benefit. It's not a zero-sum game. If you win, doesn't mean someone else has to lose. We can all win if we are, collaborating and working together. So that was kind of how that thing worked in Liverpool. It went really well. And then we kind of, didn't go our separate ways. We decided to collaborate even more. And we moved a little bit up the road to Southport, didn't we, Rick?
We did, yeah.
You did, actually. So it was you that came up to Southport. I came up with an idea. And the rest, as they say, was hoteliers.
Hoteliers, yeah. So the collaboration on this one was an idea. Again, there's a lot of pinching ideas from other people, seeing what someone else is doing in a different location and seeing how you can import it somewhere else. So Nick, you had, sort of come upon the idea of automated, guest house or boutique, B&B, whatever you want to call it. So we were looking at a model where it was, how could we run a guest house model from, 4 or 5 hours away from where we lived, automate it, take out all the bits and pieces that we didn't like about guest houses and just make it a fresh and new model. Nick, you had some ideas around, I can't even remember where you were thinking of going at the time, but I said, no, look, I think
I read an article about somebody was doing in Swansea.
Yeah.
An area of Swansea that I knew in Uplands. Been on many mentorships down there over the years. So I knew it really well. It was beautiful old buildings. And someone else had this idea of doing this kind of automated B&B. And something just clicked with me. I just thought, I was looking for the next thing that was kind of scaling up from HMOs. So my idea has kind of always really been like, let's get you started. Once you get into HMOs, like, one HMO provides cash flow roughly of probably 5 buy-to-lets. So I wanted to find the next thing that was give me the income of 5 HMOs in one deal. And it just, when I read that article, it just kind of, I looked at the numbers that the person put in their case study, and it was almost exactly 5 times the income I was getting from one of the Liverpool or Birmingham HMOs that I was doing. So that's where it all just connected. And I thought, right, this is the next thing. I remember telling you about it, and you were like, oh, well, I might have the location. I was looking at, I wanted to do Edinburgh, but Edinburgh is like super expensive. Price point pretty high in Edinburgh. So I was looking at coastal towns, like Northumberland, like places like Saltburn. I looked at places like South Shields. So I wanted kind of traditional seaside towns where the bed and breakfast businesses traditionally were. But nothing was really kind of float my boat about that. And I was thinking about having to start again with a power team up there. And then I floated this idea to Rick, said, look, talk about doing this. I like this model of automated hotels. What do you reckon? And you said,
yeah, well, we were already looking at single sort of unit SA stuff, sort of north of Liverpool, Formby, Crosby, up towards that area. And then when Nick showed me this area, I said, right, there's some, really the market up there is ripe for it. There was lots of very tired guest houses priced accordingly. There was a saturation in the market. It seemed like everyone must have moved there probably, 40 to 20 years ago and opened a guest house or taken over a guest house, and everybody was looking to retire. They're all hitting their like late 50s, some late 60s, some even late 70s. And they're like, right, I want to retire out this market. So the market was flooded and they were all trying to sell pretty much the same thing. It was tired, dated, brown, sort of magnolia, swirly carpets, hadn't really had a lot of investment. And as soon as we went up there, we started seeing, 9, 10, 12, 15 bed, guest houses that were, probably the price of, an average family home that worked really well.
Yeah. So kind of had the model, and then Rick came out with the location, and we're like, right, okay, let's do that. So got in our respective cars. Rick's on the south coast, I'm in Edinburgh, and we met kind of about halfway in Southport. So it kind of worked from that perspective as well. And that's how we end up in Southport and doing automated hotels in Southport.
And the same model went, didn't it? As soon as we started looking into it, the collaboration was like, okay, right, you need to go and find, the sales agents. I need to go and find a builder. I need to go and talk to, maintenance people. We're looking for a part-time manager. So it was, again, just sort of, these are the systems we've been putting in, right? What you're using for locks, what you're using for, your hive system for your heating, who's your fire engineer and all the rest of it. It was just like, right, what are the things we need to get? Furniture, suppliers, all that kind of thing. And then we just collaborated massively on it to make it happen quickly.
And I think, some people getting into it might think, well, if you're both doing B&Bs, aren't you competition for each other?
Well, our view on that was very much that I'm no competition to Nick and Nick's no competition to me. Everybody else was competition. So we were, looking to bring something into the market that was competitively priced and actually not massively more than what was offered already, but in terms of comfort level and automation and just feeling of luxury, people would get, was it luxury at an affordable price? So we were looking to blow away the rest of the competition by bringing in something that was really upping the levels. And it was interesting, we took away the breakfast element of it. That was, realistically the killer for a lot of these retiring, guys. They were getting up whether there was 1, 2 or 10 people in, cooking, bacon and eggs in the morning, and I've been doing that for like the last 20 years. And first thing we said is that we need to get rid of the lumpy beds. We need to get rid of the breakfast. There's, we're right on the high street. There's a whole bunch of places people can go eat. So why would we bother to offer it? That the more you offer, the more you offer, the more people can complain. So if you take out the whole catering side of it, it's a whole part of your business that can't get critiqued.
Yeah, and I don't think that, as we've learned over the last few years, hospitality world has changed quite a bit. And there's a certain generation of traveller that probably expects that hospitality, breakfast cooked kind of vibe. But there's a whole new generation of travellers that are not interested in that. They're quite happy to go and grab a coffee and a pastry, from a coffee shop around the corner. And, not everyone wants to sit down and eat a cooked breakfast at 7:30 in the morning. And some of these made us laugh. We went into some of these places when we looked at, and there was a sign on the door saying breakfast between 7:30 and 8, something like that. So you had this little, they offered breakfast, but you could only do it in this half-hour window. And you just know that that's because they've been doing it for so long. They're so sick of doing it that they just reduce this window. Well, I'll get up. I'm only going to do this breakfast between 7:30 and 8. So we kind of thought, well, look, what's the point of that? The world has changed and people don't necessarily need or want that anymore. So, and what that also meant from a business perspective was we could get rid of that breakfast room, and that's suddenly another cost, and that's another profit center. It's another room,
Exactly.
that can be let out at £100 a night. So, that's how we felt about it. We weren't competing with each other. We were competing with everybody else. And there was plenty in that market for both of us to do well without competing with each other. We were absolutely collaborating. We shared cleaners, we shared, managers. If one of our managers was away on holiday, the other one would cover for each other's hotels. And again, it's just that power of collaboration and not thinking it's you against the world and you've got to do it all. And, everyone is competition to you. It's just not.
Yeah, and I think that collaboration went a stage further. We organise Christmas get together with our property wealth system, mentors and coaches, and we said, actually, look, you dotted all around the country. Why don't we all get together at Christmas and we can show you what we've done. And it's been interesting to see some of the the property mentors, our coaches, our our educators that have gone on and have are now gone on to do stuff. So we've got other automated hotels coming online with the team in Leeds, Thorpes.
I'm trying to think of everyone that was in that room that Christmas, and I would reckon 80% of them have gone on to do some kind of automated hotel or service accommodation business.
Yeah,
which is great, and and that, I love that.
Yeah, some have done it sort of individual units. Some have gone out and bought, guest houses, converted existing hotels, and it's been, again, I think this whole thing, look, property evolves and it changes, but there's not that much original thought in there. It's like, what's somebody doing? How can I copy it? How can I get into that model and understand it? And then how can I put my stamp on it so I can either, pick it up and put it into a different area, or I can just elevate it a bit. I think we saw that, in the HMO model, when Nick and I were in Liverpool, 7, 8, 9 years ago, you'd go into an HMO and the letting agent said, "Oh, this one's the best in the portfolio. It's, it was out of doubt the best." And then you go into another one in 6 months and someone had done something extra funky, like, I don't know, astroturf the ceiling, or, put a pool table in there, or, and then next thing was like, actually, we're going to put en suites everywhere. And so every time it's just elevating the model. And it's the same in the SA space. What can you do? How can you copy it? How can you repeat it? And how can you learn from other people? Just share and share.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It really, I think a lot of investors go into it thinking that they've got to do it all on their own. They've got to come up with something new. You really don't. It's exactly what Rick said, is like, find someone that's doing something that resonates with you, connects with you. Because, 1,000 people could have read that article that I read, and 995 of them might have gone, yeah, interesting, but not for me. And 5 might read it and go, I get that. That's what I want to do. And that's fine. It's you find your thing. That was my thing. Became kind of your thing. You've since moved on to other things.
Yeah, it was interesting. I remember not so long ago, a friend of mine was up in Newcastle, and he was like, I'm staying in one of those places that that you run. It's like there's no one here. I got there was a key code, and there was stuff came to me on an app, and it's just it's really modern and fresh. Having stayed at the Holiday Inn, or whatever it might be, or other brands are available. It's quite homogenized. It's quite sort of like, you get in the room, and and as somebody who traveled around the country and stayed at different places, it was interesting. He found the whole experience really quite new and fresh, and just a bit more personal. But the fact was, there was no people there, and so I just think, as a model, it's new and fresh, and
you can make it personal without having to be there in person, I think. And whilst I was traveling out of the country, mentoring for 10, 15 years, seeing all corners of the country and staying in all types of accommodation, I think that's why that article that I read resonated with me, because the amount of times I remember standing in a queue of reception 10 deep with one person on there dishing out physical key cards. Why? Surely there's a better way of doing this than me. I'm tired. I've just done a 4-hour drive. I just want to get to my room. Don't want to have to do this, and so that's why it really resonated with me. I think when I read the article, I was like, yeah, I get it. It's not for everyone, but for those people that do want that kind of hotel, it works. And that's why I'm particularly passionate about that kind of thing. So
the good thing about it is you can definitely copy. It was dead easy for us to go and look at the competition in the HMOs, get some letting agents, find us, the type of high-end HMO, show us your best product. We want to copy that and better it. Yeah, here's 6, 7. There's one just starting. There's one in the middle. There's one finished. Brilliant. Nick and I were just, right, this is what we'll replicate. Same in the guest house model. So go study, steal the best ideas, and then make it your own. I think that's the advice.
That is the message. It's not, I think people trying to overcomplicate property a little bit. Remember what it's all about, right? It's not ego. It's there. Property is a great vehicle for building long-term wealth and immediate cash flow. That is what we're all about. Property Wealth System, showing you how to do that. How to use a system. It is a system. It's not overly complicated. But you got to do work for sure, and it is hard work at times. But it can also make it fun. You collaborate with your friends, people who are also into the same thing you are. It really does, make it enjoyable pursuit. And that's kind of how I guess we got into like the property education sector as well, Rick. So we are working together on Property Wealth System. So myself, Caroline, Rick, and Sarah. Having sworn years and years ago, I think we said we're never going to go into business together. here we are.
Yeah.
Working all right, I think. I think it's about understanding what everyone's strengths are, isn't it?
Yeah.
What strengths have you got? What weaknesses have you got? Who does what? Splitting the roles down so we're not all trying to do the same thing, and we've got a common purpose. I think that was what swung it for us as to why we would go into business together. We have been working together for 4 years.
Probably getting close to 5 now. Yeah. So
On to 5 for that. And it works really well because we all have different skill sets we bring to the table.
Yeah, I think it helps that we've known each other for over half a lifetime, which helps. Yeah, I think it's like about leaving space for people to do what they're good at and not trying to. I think as you get older, perhaps the ego drops off a little bit. I think it helps. I think for those of you that perhaps aren't lucky enough to have somebody that you've known for many years doing the same thing as you, particularly in property. Sometimes you can be a little bit of an outlier. Yeah, I'm the only person that's interested in improving my lot or wealth generation or investing. Most of my other friends, colleagues, peers are just happy bundling along. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's important there, if you are missing that aspect, that you work out a way that you can network and build people around you. Networking for some people is quite an ugly word. It's like, it means going to a organized networking property meeting where everyone tries to suck the information and life out of you. That's not networking for me. Networking's about high touch, talking to people, just making a note of people that you'd like to work with, whether it's the letting agent, whether it's the maintenance man, whether it's the builder. You can build networks a different way, but I think definitely having an investor network around you is important. It's reaching out. So particularly if you see people that are doing what you want to do, reach out to them. You might have to kiss a few frogs, but say, yeah, I really like what you're doing, Nick, with your hotel. Perhaps would you be up for having a coffee with me? I like the model, and you can obviously follow people on social media. It's another way, but I think it's really important to collaborate and try and share. What you tend to find is the more you give, it's reciprocal, isn't it? So if you want information or you want help and support, you've also got to be the person that gives that support information back.
It always comes back round. I think Property Wealth says we have an amazing team of mentors and trainers that we work with for many years, and a lot of these people we only know through property trading stuff that we do, but they've become really, really good friends, and a lot of those people have gone on to collaborate amongst each other. And they say it's not maybe the same as you and I, where we've known each other pre-property. They've only know each other from the property stuff that we've kind of brought together. We've gone off done amazing things, and they have now become close friends. And I think that's great. And it's just so powerful to be in this with other people that you like. And that you, as you say, Rick, you got to put it out there. But if you put it out there and you offer to help people, that will come back to you.
Yeah, come from a place of abundance, not scarcity. I think that's the takeaway for me. And I was skeptical about it. It's like I've got this thing, I want to hold on to it. But as I say, if you put yourself out there and talk to people, you'd be surprised. Not everyone. Some people would be definitely not your sort of person. You won't get on with everybody. Just accept that. But you definitely will feel people that you will connect with and feel, a mutual respect for what they're doing and hopefully can work together. So I guess they're the takeaways for me: collaborate, share, and network.
Absolutely. And that will help you to accelerate, whether you're just starting off and really want to get moving quick, or you had hit a bit of a stall and you want to go again. Absolutely. Get collaborating, find people to work with, and that can help inspire you to really crack on.
I think we should probably maybe in a future one, Nick, I know you and Caroline have done working with spouses. Maybe we could do the male perspective as well, and the girls could do their perspective. There's definitely some follow-up, I think, from collaboration, working together, joint ventures. I'll learn from doing that and doing, doing more kind of structured deals with people. So there's other follow-ups to this podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to connect with us, you can find us on thispropertylife.co.uk. You can also find us at propertywealthsystem.co.uk. We have contact pages on there. So if you've got questions, you want anything you want us to talk about, or you got any comments on what we've talked about today, do get in contact. We'd love to hear, from our listeners. I'm sure a lot of you out there got some questions. And again, as I said, topics you want us to cover, and we'll get to them. So we have a couple of big news events coming out of the Camp PWS last couple of days. So first one is Caroline is heading out to Singapore at the end of this month and to deliver a keynote speech at a quite big business event out there in Singapore. What it is, it's a real opportunity for her to reconnect with a lot of her Singaporean students from a few years back. Caroline and I used to head out to Singapore probably 3 or 4, and Hong Kong 3 or 4 times a year for over the last kind of 10 years. But, lockdown kind of put an end to that. But Caroline's really excited about getting back out there and to catch up with some of her students. So if anybody's out there listening from Singapore, do drop Caroline a message, connect with her on Instagram. She'll be very excited to catch up with you. I think she's going to be holding some evening networking events, and there'll be some opportunities one-to-ones. And Sarah is also heading out with her to support. So lucky for them. Maybe we'll get to do a boys' trip next time, Rick.
Now, leaving us responsible adults to do the parenting.
Yes, exactly. So get in contact if you would like to connect with Caroline in Singapore. And the next very exciting announcement we've got is that Caroline is going to be running one of her very famous 3-day intensive property workshops back in her hometown of Edinburgh for the first time in 6 years. This is going to be held in early October. Dates, Rick, are, I believe, the 11th of October.
You're the details man. That sounds good to me.
I am the details man. So we're looking at the 11th and 13th of October in Edinburgh. For those of you listening who've been on one of Caroline's 3-day events, you know what it's all about. So if there's anyone out there that you think might benefit from attending in person, contact us at propertywellsystem.co.uk events to find out a bit more. We do have a contact form. We will be running a referral scheme there. So if you've got anyone you think would enjoy that experience, then do get in contact with us. And if you haven't been on one of Caroline's 3-day property intensive events, then I highly recommend that you do. Again, she covers, well, Rick, you're there at most of them.
I don't know how she has the energy. I mean, that's the first thing. She brings a lot of knowledge, exceptional passion for the property industry, and it'll be a whistle-stop tour through how you can get started in property, how you can scale up, and just sharing a lot of our own experience of the types of deals. It's real life stuff happening in today's market, not stuff that was 10, 15 years ago. It's relevant to today's market. So if you are curious, if you're already investing in property, you want to scale up, or you want to get started, it's the place to be.
So come and find out more, propertywellsystem.co.uk/events. So Rick, brings us to the end of this episode. So how can people find you, Rick? Are you on socials anywhere?
No, I'm a ghost.
Rick likes to operate in the background unless he's in the pub where he's out there doing deals and buying streets of houses. Is that correct? From a pub?
Yeah,
I think it was.
From a man in a pub, yeah. Your best bet's to meet me in the pub.
Excellent. But if you want to connect with any of us, thispropertylife.co.uk or Property Wealth System.
And LinkedIn and all the usual channels.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for your time. It's great to chat with you. And coming up on This Property Life, we have more content for you coming up over the next few weeks, and lots of great interviews and more updates about Property Wealth System and things that are going on. So we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.